Running infinitely? Running up mountains? Launching across a part of a distance? Or how about launching across half of the map for Breath of the Wild? We're going to be going over that today because today I'm doing a follow-up to my last video when I went over how to infinitely duplicate your hearts and stamina in Breath of the Wild by doing a tutorial and explanation into how to use different movement mechanics in the game to your advantage because of how open the engine is in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But without further ado, let's get right into it. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the different methods they can use from easy to hard difficulty. So I'm going to start off with the easiest and then move on to gradually harder and harder strats. The first I'd like to go over is whistle sprinting. Whistle sprinting is a mechanic which allows you to run an infinite amount of distance, as well as climbing up mountains much steeper than you're normally supposed to be able to. How this trick is performed is basically, instead of just holding the B button to run, you want to actually hold in the button for whistling for Epona, or whichever horse you have, by holding D-pad down. If you then press the B button, Link will actually run for a little bit, and then it's automatically going to cancel his run. But if you then tap the B button again, you can continually start running. So if you time this perfectly, you only have to press the B button 2 times per second, so it's not even a difficult trick at all. And actually, this makes you run at 80% full running speed from just using stamina, which means you can either use this just if you want to be a little bit lazy and do this everywhere, or you can do what I would do, which would be to run, and then when you're about to lose your stamina, you then start whistle sprinting. I'm going to put a controller display up on the screen. You can kind of see how I like to grip my controller to actually do this, because as you can imagine, holding D-pad down, pressing the button for running, as well as controlling your analog stick can be a little bit tricky. So this is what I would recommend as your grip to actually make this a bit more consistent. Another great part about the mechanic system in Breath of the Wild, which would allow you to actually save yourself in multiple situations, either in your speedrun or in your casual playthrough, is canceling out falling damage. By holding an axe and then starting to throw it, if you actually unequip the axe or unequip your shield, you're going to notice that he's actually not going to throw the item completely. And this is where this trick comes into play. Basically, if you fall from a very high height, and then you start holding the button for throwing your item, such as your axe, sword, you name it, and then start to release it and then unequip your shield, it's going to determine that that location which you did that trick at is actually going to be where the game is considering you to start falling from. Which means that you can fall from an entire mountain, and if you do this is fairly close to the ground, it's going to reset the point of where you started falling. So you're either not going to take any falling damage whatsoever, or if you go safe, you will only take a slight amount of falling damage. Now this is especially useful for the Great Plateau before you have your paraglider, but even after that, if you ever happen to run out of your paraglider, then you can still use this trick, so I very much do recommend you to try it out. I would say this probably takes about 5 minutes to get down, and it's not too complicated. The next trick I'd like to go over is something called Stasis Launches. And the most simple form of a Stasis Launch is, in my opinion, in form of a rock. Basically how a Stasis Launch works is that you want to get hit by an object that you stasis and hit a bunch. The reasoning for this is because when the actual stasis effect is about to run out, you're basically going to have an object that's going to move in a huge amount of speed and distance. And by basically getting hit by the actual rock or whichever object you do use, then you can actually keep some of the speed because the rock does push you forward. Now, the reason I say that I recommend a rock is because this does actually, in theoretical terms, work with every single item you can stasis, like a chest or a tree, or a small rock, you name it. However, this rock shape is actually very good because there's such a huge amount of distance on it that can push you forward. So the timing is a bit more, I guess you can say, generous. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stasis this rock, and I'm then going to turn around, hold the button for spinning around with my axe in my hand, and then actually walk towards the rock. The reasoning for this is if you're facing away from an object and you're moving backwards into it, you're actually going to get multiple hits instead of just one every single time you have completely turned around. So after getting it as much hit as possible, I'm simply going to press the button to cancel spinning around, and then jump up on the rock. I'm then going to hold target and face in a similar way that the actual rock is about to be knocked away from. And then when it's about to go off, I'm just going to jump forward and then just start mashing the paraglider. And what is going to happen is that the rock is going to hit me. I'm going to go forward and then I'm going to take out my paraglider as early as I possibly can. And I can then fly. And as you can see, you're getting a much greater amount of speed than you would normally ever be able to do by just taking out the paraglider in normal usage. Now, a thing I'd like to note, however, is if I open up the map right here, you can see with these 2 stars that I crossed, how great of a distance you're able to travel, which isn't too bad. However, there is one trick which allows you to cover a much greater distance. Now, the difficulty of this trick is actually, I would say, extremely hard, and it requires a lot of practice for each individual spot. So in this specific video, I'm going to go over the most simple kind and kind of just go into how it works. So first off, let me put a video up on the screen of me even performing the trick. As you can see how it looks like I kind of just jump in midair, take out my bow, and then pause the game to unequip it, and then just fly a huge distance. Now, how does this even work? Well, to explain it as simply as possible, basically, when you slow down the game by taking out your bow, the game is obviously being played much slower than it would normally do in normal casual playthrough. And the speed that the game would normally give you for bouncing on an object would basically make you get stuck in place because of how slow you're playing at the game at about 1/19th of the normal speed. What is going to happen if you bounce is that you just kind of be stuck there in midair, right? So what the game did to compensate this is that it actually multiplies Link's speed of a bounce by times 19 the normal amount. And the useful thing about this is if you actually go out of the slow motion mode just as you bounce on an enemy, such as by unequipping your bow or pressing the button to kind of spin around and do like a trick when you're sliding on your shield, you can actually maintain this times 19 boost amount of speed on the bounce. And that's what allows you to go such a great distance. Now this can be used to either gain a lot of height or gain speed, depending on how you land on the actual enemy's head, whichever object you decide to bounce off of. Now, what would I recommend you to start off with? Like I said, each individual bullet time bounce that I would personally use in a speedrun is all done by incredibly precise setups, and I'm not going to go over all of that today. However, I do plan to make a separate video on how to do all of the bullet time bounces in the any percent speedrun of this game if you are interested in learning it. But in this video, I'm going to go over what I would recommend you to try out initially, just to maybe see if you can get it at least once. So, what would I recommend you to do? I would recommend you to go up to this camp right here and actually save down below here. After you've saved here, I recommend you to run up over this little cliff and the enemies are going to spot you. You should then climb up this little tower right here, and what you want to do then is you want to target this bokoblin, and then because you're targeting a bokoblin, you cannot fall off of a ledge. So at that point you can kind of just hold upright to make sure that you go into the corner of the basically little platform you're standing on where you could snipe and where the chest is spawned. After that, you want to wait for the bokoblin to move forward, and I do want to mention on this specific Boko camp, the bokoblin can either throw rocks at you from further distance or walk towards you, so you want him to wait till he walks towards you. After he's done that, you want to start holding forward, press the jump button, and then a slight split second later, press the actual button to actually do a shield jump. And then before you land on his head, you simply want to press the ZR button to take out the bow. And then what you can do is you can either, like I said, buffer until you're about to land on his head and unequip the bow, or simply press the left button on your right Joy-Con so that you can actually do a trick from it, and that's going to allow you to either go very high up or in any direction. Now, getting a consistent angle every time might be difficult, but just playing around with this glitch, I would definitely say that this is an easy spot. And if you have tried this once and it didn't work, then you scroll to the right to reload your save file, because they're always going to spawn at the same positioning, and you can get another attempt to retry this over and over and over again. But without further ado, that'll be it for this video. If you are interested in more tricks and glitches, then definitely be sure to let me know. One video idea that I currently have, which I would consider making if there is enough interest, is going over a step-by-step guide and explanation into how to skip the Trial of the Sword. Because I know a lot of people are struggling to do Trial of the Sword and they find the process very tedious, especially on Master Mode. And if that is something that interests you, I could definitely make a video on it, because having the opportunity to skip the Trial of the Sword would definitely help out a lot of people. But without further ado, let me know down in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more videos just like this. And if you did miss my most recent Breath of the Wild video I uploaded, you can see it on the screen right there. Or if you want to watch the most recent glitch discovery video I have on Wind Waker, you can also click on that. But without further ado, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.